everybody. That's the man with the mustache, Tim here, and have I got the gold for you? I'm not kidding you on this one. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was a nut for thinking that there was gold in their heels. But dang it, I was right, dagnabbit. I brings to you the gold of my fortunes, and that brings to you in the form of a video. It's part 12 of What If Toga Was in Class 1A. So sit back and relax while I spin a yarn for you. Yahoo! Toga sat in class some time after the day of the practice test. Things had been moderately calm since then, besides her mother's reminders of how she needed to hang up her clothes due to how wrinkled they were getting. Toga had been avoiding her closet, where she had kept the blood hidden. She had managed to find ways to avoid any thoughts about it whenever she didn't have to go into her closet, but its existence had still become a bit of a hindrance that had made her regret that she had brought it home in the first place. Whenever she went to try and throw it away, it always ended in a new attempt to not drink it. By this point, the blood had begun to grow thicker due to its improper storage. This change did make it a bit easier for her to resist her urges further, but it wasn't much. Not to mention her new need to avoid straws. Toga ended up spending most of her time on the stain forums or hung out with some of the girls from her class. One way or another, she needed to be distracted from her wandering thoughts. Luckily for her, a major distraction arrived with the announcement of the finals. Everyone had seemed pretty confident until Aizawa reminded them of the knowledge part of the test. Many were pretty nervous about the written test, but Yaoyorozu offered the others a group study session at her house. She even asked Toga if she wished to join. Toga glanced from her to Uraraka, who seemed to have joined Midoriya and Ida to form their own group. She thought about joining them to hang out with Midoriya again, since they'd been apart for a while, but also to study with her best friend. But Toga's eyes locked with Bakugo's, who looked off the moment their eyes met. It seemed he was all by himself again. Toga politely told Yaoyorozu thank you for her offer, but that she had other plans. Yaoyorozu understood and left her to it. As Toga stood up to go to Bakugo, the lunch bell rang. She left with the class to the cafeteria where she got her food, then sat down at Bakugo's table across from him.
"What do you think you're doing, freak?"
he muttered in an annoyed fashion. "Bothering you, duh," she teased with a smirk. "I figured you missed yelling at me."
"Whatever,"
Bakugo muttered as he looked away with a scowl. Toga mildly pouted. It seemed the boy still was acting weird around her after their fight. She supposed this at least meant she'd be able to get 5 words in while they talked. "So, are you gonna study with anyone for the finals?" she asked curiously.
"Why? Do you need help to avoid being an utter idiot?"
"Actually, I figured you may get lonely, but I can pretend I'm hopeless without you if that's what you want," she simply replied. Toga did need some help with studying, since it wasn't her strong suit, but it wasn't like she would be hopeless without the boy. Bakugo gazed over her for a moment. He took a few bites of his food, then grumbled under his breath.
"I'm not lonely, freak. I will help you, though, since you clearly need it," he huffed out. "Meet me at the school gates after school. We'll go to my place to study. Just don't be weird about it. Got it?"
"You got it." She ate some more of her food. "I am a bit surprised, though."
"About what?"
he asked with a raised brow. "I mean, we've never been on a date before, and I'm already going to meet your parents."
"Hey, I said not to make it weird, freak!"
he shouted back at her. Toga snorted with laughter at his reaction. It was odd to admit, but she sort of missed his yelling. She also missed the fun she had when she teased him. Maybe she had grown to see him as a friend after all. When she got past his spiky shell, Bakugo wasn't that bad of a guy. He was just emotionally stunted at the age of 6 and couldn't express his feelings like a normal person. Once she got past how he shared his feelings via angry shouts, he was someone who actually seemed to genuinely care for others. Toga kept teasing Bakugo as they ate lunch. She proceeded to tease him about how she'd hoped he'd get all dolled up for their study session like he did during his internship. She let him be after lunch and went to hang out with Uraraka between lessons. Uraraka invited Toga to join her group, but Toga declined. She told Uraraka about her plans with Bakugo. This resulted in her friend teasing her about the possibility of Toga liking the boy. The very idea which was promptly rejected by Toga. Uraraka stopped teasing soon after Toga pouted with puffed up cheeks. At the end of the day, Toga said her goodbyes to the other girls, then joined the impatient Bakugo, who muttered about how long it took her to get to him. Toga followed him back to his house, where she stood in shock. She watched a shouting match between Bakugo and his mother start relatively quickly, all while his father stood passively between them like a scared child. The father tried to calm the two down, but failed with each attempt. Then came the explosions. Then the property damage. Toga's eye twitched before she whispered, "Everything makes so much sense now." After the two finally stopped fighting over whose method of folding laundry was superior, Bakugo introduced Toga to his parents.
"This is Himiko,"
he said with a lazy motion to the stunned Toga. "You actually learned my name?" she asked, dumbfounded.
"Of course I did, freak,"
Bakugo grunted. His reply seemed to trigger another mini-fight between him and his mother, who was upset about how her son had addressed Toga with an insult. While they fought, his father introduced himself. He stated he was pleased to meet her, and informed her that Bakugo talked about her often ever since the tournament happened. Bakugo's father didn't clarify how his son talked about her though, be it good or bad. After the second shouting match ended, Bakugo explained that Toga was there to study, and would be coming over for the rest of the week to do so. After his mother insisted she stay for dinner, Bakugo led Toga over to the living room. On the way there, Toga texted her mother to tell her she'd be at a friend's house for dinner. As the two began to study, Toga was surprised at how intelligent Bakugo was. He even helped her with a few subjects she didn't understand. She brought up how surprised she was before she told him about the issues she was having with the betterment of her quirk. As they made their way to the table to eat dinner with his parents, Bakugo shook his head while he spoke.
"You really are mentally hopeless without me,"
he said with a scoff. "Did you just call me stupid?" Toga asked with brows furrowed.
"No, freak, just hopeless. But you're apparently deaf too. Listen up, cause I won't say this twice. Your quirk needs blood to allow you to shift into others, right?" he explained as he waved off Toga's surprised face. "It was obvious after our fight that that's how it worked. Stop giving me that stupid look, freak. Now it's clear you need the DNA the blood provides to turn into others. Your quirk probably converts the DNA into your own, or replicate it with the flesh it makes around you to change your physical form. Which means, it picks out just a few parts of someone's DNA to replicate their looks and voice. You could start working on figuring out how it works, then expand on it. Since there's a lot of stuff that you could get with DNA, you probably have a lot to work with."
Toga stared, dumbfounded at the boy as they sat down. Bakugo's brow twitched at her in return.
"What, freak?"
he asked. "It's just that you're really some kind of genius," she exclaimed with a smile that slowly formed on her face.
"Why are you acting like that's so shocking?"
he replied, clearly aggravated she thought he was anything less than intelligent. "'Cause you act like you never think about anything before you do anything, hothead." He waved her off as his parents came over with the food. The four of them ate together while they talked about their days. Toga was pretty excited from the advice Bakugo had given her, as well as from their overall hangout. She went home happily, her thoughts filled with all their studies and her plans to further her own quirk. The next day, while she was at school, she picked up some books on DNA, then once again left for Bakugo's to study the next few days. On the last day, they decided to go to Toga's house. Things went fairly normal, with the occasional tease from Toga's mother. She suggested the possibility of them dating at this point, after how often they had been studying together. Both Toga and Bakugo promptly rejected the idea just as soon as it was brought up. Eventually, her mother left them alone, and Bakugo stared down Toga for a moment before he quietly muttered,
"So that's where you get it from."
"Hush," Toga whispered back. The two kept up with their studies at the dinner table while her mother started to cook. Around this time, Toga's father came home. He stared at them here and there, but ultimately didn't say anything. Toga and her father had made a good bit of progress over the last semester, but things were still a bit strained. Her own father still mildly distrusted his daughter, which was as clear as day. Bakugo watched him, rather than studied, for a long while, before he realized what was going on. He stood up, then shouted to her father and pointed.
"Hey, will you quit staring? She's just studying, not planning your demise, so quit staring at her like she is."
"Bakugo, please," Toga started, but was cut off by Bakugo.
"No, I'm not gonna just sit here with this bastard staring like that. He must be a pretty shit father if he doesn't know his own daughter well enough to be that freaked out by her."
Silence took over the room. Everyone but Bakugo was at a loss for words. Bakugo picked up their things with a huff and told Toga to lead him to her room so they could study. Toga blushed a bit, but led him there. Once in the room, he gave her a look when he saw the mess it was. He shoved some things out of the way, then proceeded to set up a spot on the floor for them to study. The two studied in silence for a bit before Bakugo spoke up again in a softer tone.
"You've got nothing to prove to him, freak. If he doesn't let you in, it's his loss, not yours."
The two locked eyes for a moment before Bakugo looked back to his notes.
"Now turn to chapter 23. It's the last one we have to go over."
His voice went back to its usual demanding tone. Bakugo left before dinner after they finished studying. Dinner that night was fairly quiet. Toga tried her best to avoid her father's eye contact, and left when she finished eating. The following week, Toga breezed through the written tests thanks to Bakugo's help. As soon as the written finals were finished, the exercise ones began. Everyone was paired up except for Toga. Before she could ask who she would be paired with, Aizawa cut her off with an additional announcement.
"Today we'll be running a test for a student in 1C due to the class's odd number of students, as well as needing him to test to see if he can be transferred into class 1A next semester." He motioned the student over. The class looked behind them to see Shinzo in his gym uniform and wraps. "The rules are the same for you both. Your target will be the teacher of class 1B, Vlad King."
Vlad King walked up next to Aizawa, who continued on.
"Get ready. The first group will be starting soon,"
Aizawa said before he walked off. While the others talked, Shinzo ignored the other students who wanted to speak to him, instead focusing to talking to Toga about their plans. He was more focused on building a solid plan than he was about socialization with a class he may not even get into, if he failed. Unlike the other students, the two were more confident about the task thanks to their time with Aizawa. They wondered if he had actually prepared them for this test the whole time. As the first group went up, the two covered how much Shinzo had gotten better since their last time they saw each other. After that, the two began to come up with a plan on how they could finish the task. All they had to do was cuff Vlad King or run away. Shinzo doubted he could get into 1A by passing the test by just running. Toga easily agreed, and the two decided to plan for a way to win with the cuffs. Toga knew plenty about Vlad's quirk thanks to her time with him, and filled Shinzo in about his limitations, along with what Vlad King knew about them. Soon the two finished their plans. After all the rounds were done, it was finally their turn to take their own test. Vlad King stood near the exit point when the test began. It took some time, but soon Shinzo darted over with impressive speed. Vlad went to comment on the speed, though quickly remembered the boy's quirk. The boy leapt up to kick Vlad in the face, which was blocked by his forearms. The boy backflipped off Vlad's arms with a stumble-filled landing that felt as though he hadn't expected to hit the ground so soon. Shinzo ran at Vlad to waste no time after he composed himself. The boy reared back a fist as he grew closer to Vlad. Vlad went to prepare to catch the fist, but the boy dropped into a skid in order to slide between Vlad's legs. While on his back, Shinzo arched his body with a semi-roll. He kicked off the ground as his body twisted up onto his palms, then extended his arms out all the way into a handstand. Shinzo finished the twist of his body to face Vlad as he brought down all of his weight into his feet, into the pits of Vlad's knees. Vlad fell forward as Shinzo used the momentum of the attack to bring himself up to a standing position. Shinzo quickly moved to grab Vlad's arms, but Vlad was too fast. The hero spun around to grab the boy first. Vlad then pinned him to the ground quickly. The boy sighed with a wince from Vlad's weight, who started to eject his own blood to bind the boy. Strangely, the boy grew a bright blush upon the thought of the blood that would soon exit the man's hero gear. "You know, I tried to warn you the height difference may throw me off, but I guess you were right about it not being too drastic that it'd be a big issue." The boy's voice altered to that of Toga's as the flesh of his body melted away to reveal Toga underneath. Vlad's eyes went wide. His eyes shot down to realize the lack of wraps around the girl's neck. He had been more focused on the attack to notice the very weapon Shinzo would have been using. Before he could fully react, Shinzo's wrap shot around him quickly to bind the hero.
"You're resourceful, but you don't give yourself enough credit. I figured you'd figure something out."
The real Shinzo called out as he swung in from another end of the wraps, wearing nothing but his boxers. The boy skidded across the ground towards the hero and cuffed Vlad quickly. Once the match was declared over, he helped Vlad out of the wraps. Toga rubbed her arms where she was pinned. Shinzo explained how despite his training, he still hadn't had enough time to perfect how to fight up close as well as Toga. However, Shinzo did figure out that Vlad would think otherwise after he and Toga caught up. Originally, he planned to go in with Toga to fight together, but if Vlad knew he was around, he'd know to expect his attacks too. They had considered Toga moving in while she was invisible to use the wraps, but since she didn't know how to use them correctly, that too would likely result in failure. In addition to that, Shinzo definitely wouldn't have been able to distract Vlad on his own long enough to give her an opening to even try. Given all this, they both figured if Toga went in to distract him as Shinzo and keep him on the defensive to not notice the lack of wraps, Vlad would not expect a surprise attack by the wraps. The plan mostly relied on the hopes that Vlad would be too distracted to react. Thankfully, it worked. Aizawa agreed that their plan relied a bit too much on the right possibilities of hopes working in their favor. He also agreed that their use of knowledge about their opponent's strengths, what they already knew and what would expect, alongside their own weak points, was still great thinking on their parts for making a plan. Aizawa declared that Toga had passed, and Shinzo did well enough to join 1A. Toga smiled brightly at Shinzo and gave him a thumbs up. "Congrats, Shinzo! I knew you could do it," Toga excitedly said. "Thanks. Can I have my clothes back now?" Shinzo asked and pointed to the uniform she still had on. "Oh!" Toga awkwardly laughed. "Right, sorry." After they finished changing, Aizawa informed the students of a training camp that they would all go to soon to further themselves. He went on to inform them all of when they would leave so they could be ready to go. He also informed Shinzo that he too would be expected to go now that he was part of 1A. With that, Aizawa let the class go and change out of their costumes and go home for the day. This time, Shinzo talked to the other students on the way back while he promptly ignored any comments about his underwear. Toga talked with the others before she went home. Before she left, she congratulated Shinzo once more. When she got home, she excitedly told her mother how she passed the rest of her finals, as well as the camp that she would soon attend. Her father listened from the couch. He looked thoughtful for a moment, then walked over. He bit back his own fears and doubts he had for his daughter, then gently touched Toga's shoulder. "Himiko, I'm sorry for how I treated you." His face softened as his eyes met his daughter's that grew teary already. "I judged you for something you did as a child, and failed to give you the support I should have as a father. I just want to let you know that I'm proud of your accomplishments. That, and from this point forward, I'll support you the best I can to make up for everything." Toga looked up to her father as she began to happily cry. She lunged forward to hug him tightly. Everything she had wanted for so long finally had happened between her and her father. She knew Bakugo said she didn't need his approval, but to have it just made her world feel finally complete at home. She figured it might have been how Bakugo had stood up for her the other day that helped push her father to this point. She'd have to thank him for that later. For now, she just enjoyed the hug her father permitted her to give him. Her mother teared up and joined in on the hug. Toga's father groaned a bit from the air that was squeezed out of him, but despite this, he finally allowed himself the soft smile as he wrapped his arms around them both to hold them gently. The hug lasted a long while, but not nearly long enough to make up for what would soon come to pass. And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for indulging in ourselves and our story thus far. I hope you have enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things I need to go over before the video ends. First, we have a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts and lore of a wide variety of anime, which is sure to expand your weeb knowledge of all kinds, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. So go check that out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. Finally, if you like what we do here at We the Celestials, I want to extend an invitation to join our team. We only have one caveat: you must be 16 years or older to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be, whether you're a fan or you're looking to join our band of misfits. And so that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and I do hope you have a great day. And before I go, I do hope everyone is taking care of themselves and staying hydrated. I do appreciate everyone who supports the videos and the channel. Without you, this wouldn't be possible, so thank you all. And revel in your imperfections and individuality. Be you, don't be someone else. The world is better with you in it. So thank you. This has been Tim. Mustache out.